Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Does a criminal defense attorney use legal magic when Finn begs Jack to release Luna? According to teasers for The Bold and the Beautiful, John Finn Finnegan recently lost his temper with Poppy Nozawa for depriving him of a daughter over the years. Since Finn was unaware that Luna Nozawa was his biological child, he lost out on a lot. Now that Luna was given a life sentence, things are more complicated, but Finn has an opportunity to make up for lost time. Although Luna was placed under house arrest at the Spencer mansion when Bill Spencer pulled a prank, this is not the same as actual freedom. After that secret is revealed, Finn can come see Luna at Bill's house, but he could want a more committed relationship. Finn may someday come to forgive Luna for her misdeeds, particularly those she committed against Steffy Forrester, Jacqueline McInnes Wood, but it may take some time. Like Bill, Finn might begin to believe in Luna's metamorphosis. Finn may eventually question if he can legally assist Luna in any way. The show has never really capitalized on the fact that B&B hired Jack Finnegan, Ted King, as a criminal defense lawyer. At one point, Sheila Sharp, Kimberlin Brown, asked Jack to represent her, but he refused. If an excellent criminal defense attorney isn't going to help a criminal get off the hook, why even have him on the show? Since Jack still needs to make amends with Finn for some previous transgressions, would he be able to save his son by saving Luna? Luna's allegations of transient insanity and prior psychological damage might be relevant in this case. Luna may need to receive mental health therapy as part of the agreement, but perhaps she might find independence. Luna might be able to get away with it with a soap opera explanation if Sheila is able to move on from everything she has done and work happily at Il Giardino. With Jack's assistance with her appeal and Bill's capacity to intimidate or by judges, we may envision Luna eventually escaping her entire legal predicament. Naturally, that might be the final nail in the coffin for Finn and Steffy, so as this plot develops, Finn will need to think carefully about what he does. Stay tuned for further legal predictions and updates on any significant news that may arise, as spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful indicate that Finn and Luna's quest to unite may encounter some obstacles. Is Finn able to tell the truth? Monday, February 10, 2025, spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful hint at a significant day for Finn, who must choose whether to blow up his entire family. Spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Steffy's a hot mess. John Finn Finnegan gets ready to confide in Steffy Forrester Finnegan that he had an affair with his aunt when he was a teenager and that his daughter, a 21-year-old serial killer, held Steffy captive in a cage and attempted to murder her. Is Finn even able to speak? Steffy and Finn had experienced more in a few short years than most couples do in a lifetime, she tells her parents after their conversation at the Forrester mansion. The anguish of certain things, in her opinion, would never go away. Finn must deal with his mother as well. He tells Lee Finnegan something she should know about himself and Aunt Poppy, Romy Park, when she comes to his office. Lee says she's already aware. She may not know everything, but she may know something. If she did, she most definitely wouldn't want to be Poppy's best sister right now. Is Brooke making headway? Catherine Kelly Lang's character Brooke Logan tried her hardest to persuade Lawrence St. Victor's character Carter Walton to change his ways. He should quit questioning why Ridge Forrester, Torsten K., is so upset with him because he actually stole a business from its rightful owners. He lost his best friend because he was worthy of losing them. As Carter realizes he may have committed a grave error, those words begin to ingrain themselves into his thick skull. The old Carter would never have done this, but when he fell in love with Hope Logan, Annika Noel, he lost his mind. Carter discusses his feelings of remorse and the conversation he had with Brooke with Hope. He recommends expressing regret and making amends to the Forrester family. Hope is shocked that Carter would ever encourage her to act in such a way. Hope is unsure if she could handle that, and it would be embarrassing. Was Poppy's concealment of Luna's paternity an attempt to spare Finn? After over a year of waiting, we have finally learned the identity of Luna Nozawa's biological father. We now know that John Finn Finnegan is the father after Tom Starr, Bill Spencer, and Jack Finnegan all failed their DNA tests. The secret is out. Finn confronted Poppy Nozawa about her years of deceit in today's episode. She attempted to argue that the DNA test was inaccurate even after he showed it to her. When he held a positive DNA test in each hand, Poppy finally gave up. She originally claimed that she was never certain that he was Luna's father, before acknowledging that she just didn't want it to be real and didn't want to consider it. Finn was informed by Poppy that she didn't want the infant to interfere with him. He had a wonderful life with Steffy Forrester and their children because he was headed for a successful profession. Finn lost it when she attempted to present the scenario as though she had done him a favor by leaving to raise their child by himself. Finn feels as though he has been denied the chance to raise his daughter. We were uncertain about Finn's exact response to having a daughter in her 20s, but today we learned. Finn threw a fit at Poppy, saying that apart from having a daughter he had never had an opportunity to nurture, everything had gone well for him. In addition, he is enraged because he believes Poppy has deliberately kept Luna away from him over the years. What's next for Finn? Given his response, it's very obvious that Finn already feels a connection to the girl, whom he hardly knows, and he isn't going to keep quiet. It appears to be a rather safe bed from which he will operate really rapidly. Finn will have to face reality once he comes to terms with his newfound paternity, as Luna is now behind house arrest at Bill's after killing 2 men. He is a murderer by blood, and he planned for his wife to be one of her victims. Finn had been hoping that the results of the DNA test would finally provide him the information he so sorely needed. For weeks, the burden of Luna's paternity had weighed heavily on him, controlling every thought, interfering with his marriage to Steffy, and drawing him farther into the complex web of Poppy's secrets. However, a persistent feeling of uneasiness gripped him as he sat looking at the documents before him. It didn't feel quite right. Something in his gut told him that this wasn't the true solution, and the outcomes were too easy and tidy. He was beginning to understand why Steffy had cautioned him from the beginning to exercise caution and to investigate everything pertaining to Poppy. Poppy had been frantic to steer the story, to decide when and how Finn would find out about Luna. What if she had been manipulating him all along, even though she had professed to be protecting him? What would have happened if she had altered the results completely, rather than only hiding the truth? The thought chilled his blood. Finn retraced the entire DNA testing procedure because he was determined to find the truth. He recalled that Poppy had insisted on taking care of everything. She had brought Luna to the laboratory, arranged everything, and had all but demanded that Finn accept the findings without question. That was his error. He had put his trust in her. However, as he looked at the test he was holding, his doubts began to grow. He required clarification. Actual responses. With his heart racing, Finn hurried out of the home and drove himself to the lab. He needed to personally view the records to determine whether the sample had been handled correctly or whether Poppy or someone else had tampered. The receptionist was surprised by his passion when he arrived, but he didn't mind. He insisted that he had the right to know every aspect of the process and requested to talk to the technician who had processed the test. Finn's worst fears were validated as soon as the technician opened the files. The records showed an irregularity, something was wrong with Luna's blood sample. An anomaly in the chain of custody or a disparity in the labeling. Aware of the delicate nature of the situation, the technician paused before continuing. "Doctor, are you implying that the sample was tampered with, Finnegan?" His breath caught in Finn's throat. He had prayed, hoped, that he was mistaken. Now, however, every indication was pointing in the same direction. Poppy's. She had taken action. This was something she had planned. Furthermore, Finn was unsure if Luna was actually his daughter or if this was just another desperate attempt by Poppy to manipulate him. He clenched his fists, anger bubbling inside him. He had been duped, made to look foolish, and worst of all, if the exam had been rigged, the truth would still be out there. He was distraught, not just angry. Because now, once more, everything was in doubt. His marriage to Steffy, his connection with Luna, and his perception of reality. He needed to face Poppy. Finn didn't waste any time. He drove directly to Poppy's house and pushed open the door without even knocking. When Poppy noticed him, she was standing in the kitchen, her face changing from one of surprise to something unreadable. However, Finn had lost interest in her games. "What did you do?" His voice was low and menacing. Poppy pretended to be innocent. "What are you talking about, Finn?" The testing findings were tossed onto the table by him. "These outcomes. Surely they aren't real? Did you not meddle with Luna's blood sample?" For a split second, Poppy's face became white, but she quickly recovered. "Finn, I just wanted to keep you safe." "Keep me safe?" Finn's voice lifted. "You lied to me. You attempted to dictate my decisions and my life. What's best for me is not up to you to decide. You are not allowed to change the truth." Poppy's eyes filled with tears, but Finn remained unmoved. Not now. He had been too naive and too trusting, and now he didn't know what was genuine. There was still the truth. Finn would do whatever it took to find it. Poppy had ran out of things to do. No matter how hard she tried to hold it together, the truth was sliding through her fingers like grains of sand as her meticulously built world came apart in front of her eyes. She had spent so much time concealing information, fabricating lies, and planning events to keep Finn safe from the brutal realities of his past, but now everything was unraveling. She was also in a difficult situation. She could see the storm building in Finn's eyes as she stood in front of him, the betrayal, the fury, the disbelief. This was the most inflexible, harsh version of him she had ever encountered. She felt as though she had completely lost him, and the idea made her skin tingle. Poppy's voice broke as she reached out, her palms shaking. "Please, Finn. I was attempting to protect you, I didn't mean to hurt you." Finn's jaw tightened as he backed away. "Keep me safe," his tone was piercing, like a dagger slicing through her. "Poppy, can you even hear yourself? I was lied to by you. DNA findings were tampered with by you. You gave me the impression that things might not be true at all." Poppy shook her head wildly as tears filled her eyes. "I simply didn't intend for it to get this far. I felt afraid. I feared you would despise me if you were aware of the whole truth. I feared that I might lose you forever." With a sour chuckle, Finn took a step back, as though putting more distance between them would help him better accept what she had done. "You believed that controlling me was the solution because you were scared of losing me? You believed that the best way to protect me was to control everything behind my back and lie about Luna's paternity. Poppy, that isn't love. Control is that." Poppy sobbed and choked. "I understand. I am aware that I made a mistake. But I need you to know why I did it, Finn, please. I wanted to make things better before they became worse." Finn's eyes were unreadable and icy. "And what precisely are you attempting to correct at this time? Because you've just made things worse from my vantage point." The click of heels on the floor broke the tension before Poppy could respond. Daphne arched an eyebrow at the poignant scenario in front of her as she strode into the room like a force of nature. She had been watching from the sidelines, waiting for the right moment to come, waiting for this moment. Daphne pondered in a silky voice, now. This little soap opera is quite amazing, isn't it?" Poppy tensed up and wiped away her tears as she looked at the woman who had been sneaking into their life with a plan no one had yet fully understood. "This isn't your business, Daphne." Daphne grinned. "Yes, but it is. Secrets have the amusing ability to unite, or divide, people, you see, Poppy. And based on what I can see, Finn has suffered greatly as a result of your petty falsehoods." Finn gave her a fierce look. "Your commentary is unnecessary." Daphne just laughed, something inscrutable glinting in her eyes. "I'm not simply here to comment, Finn." Her perfume, which is intoxicating and intended to impair judgment, make people forget their anger, and cause them to succumb to temptation, filled the air as she moved closer. "I'm here to help." Finn stiffened, but Daphne just grinned and ran her fingers lightly along the hem of his sleeve. "Finn, you've gone through a lot. Heartbreak, betrayal. Don't you think it might be time for a little diversion?" Poppy felt a new wave of panic wash over her as she watched the interaction, her heart racing. She hadn't even noticed Daphne had been playing her own game the entire time since she had been so preoccupied with pleading with Finn for forgiveness. Daphne was there to change the conclusion, not merely to witness the show. Poppy was suddenly afraid that Finn could simply allow her to. Finn was furious beyond belief. Once stable and predictable, his world had devolved into a tumultuous tempest of unwelcome revelations, falsehoods, and treachery. He tightened his fists and gritted his teeth as his chest heaved with rage. He had been broken by the truth about Luna's paternity, but the deceit, the years of manipulation, and the knowledge that people he trusted had been running his life in the background were what really broke him. Now, as he was standing in front of Carter, the burden of that betrayal weighed heavily on his shoulders. Despite his charisma and assurance, Carter didn't appear calm at all in this situation. Guilt flowed from him like heat, replacing his normally cool manner. He ducked from Finn's blazing stare, his mouth clenched, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets as though it would somehow cover up his involvement in the chaos that had developed. Finn growled in a dangerously low voice, "You knew." It was a declaration, an accusation, and a realization that infuriated him rather than a question. "Did you not know the entire time?" With a harsh sigh, Carter let his shoulders drop from the weight of his own guilt. "Listen, Finn." "No," said Finn abruptly as he moved forward. "You have no right to order me to pay attention. You have no right to stand there and act as though I can ignore this. Carter, you were meant to be my friend. You were meant to support me, but instead you participated in this whole twisted cover-up." At last, with a pained face, Carter looked up. "I didn't mean to cause you harm." Finn shook his head and laughed bitterly. "The problem with betrayal, Carter, is that it doesn't originate from adversaries." His voice broke on the final syllable, the intensity of the emotion threatening to overpower him, but he resisted. "It comes from the people you trust." Carter moved forward apprehensively. "Finn, I didn't know everything. I was in the midst, and I wasn't sure how to react." Finn's eyes grew gloomy. "So you decided to say nothing?" "While everyone else spoke behind my back, I was left to live in the dark." His anger was hardly controlled as he raised his voice. "Carter, how long have you known? For what length of time have you been deceiving me?" Finn only needed to see Carter's hesitation to confirm the worst. With a frustrated hand raking through his hair, Finn mumbled, "Unbelievable." Anger, treachery, and the blatant injustice of it all were pulsating through his entire body. "And you think I'll just take that? To simply go on as if this had never occurred?" With regret visible in his eyes, Carter let out a sigh. "Finn, I don't have any expectations. I simply—" "No," Finn interrupted abruptly, his tone icy and decisive. With his hands shaking and his pulse thumping like a war drum, he pointed at Carter and said, "You don't get to explain your way out of this. I had faith in you. I would have supported you no matter what. However, his voice was raw with emotion as he shook his head. "I'm not sure if I can ever forgive this." Carter recoiled, but he made no protests. He was aware that Finn had every reason to be angry. "You have every right to go." And Carter realized there was no simple solution to mend what had been damaged when Finn pivoted on his heel and bounded off, leaving him alone with his guilt. Being tough, self-reliant, and passionately protective of her family was something Steffy Forrester had always taken great pride in. Nothing had prepared her for the tempest that Luna's paternity bombshell had unleashed, despite the fact that she had fought battles, suffered betrayals, and experienced grief. The discovery that Finn was Luna's father rocked her world, upending the foundation of her marriage and her meticulously planned life. And now she was being pushed to forgive Luna, or at least seemed to, against every instinct that was screaming inside of her. There had been increasing pressure from every direction. Ever the kind-hearted one, Finn had pleaded with her to forgive her. Her father, Ridge, had warned her not to let resentment to influence her decisions. Of all people, even Hope Logan had weighed in, advising her to accept Luna as family instead of shoving her away. However, Steffy wasn't sure if she had the strength to simply move on from the betrayal and the fresh scars. Unknowingly, Luna had found herself at the center of a conflict that wasn't hers to wage. After living her entire life in ignorance of her true ancestry, the young woman experienced the most devastating conceivable revelation. Steffy knew rationally that it wasn't her fault, but that didn't make the hurt of betrayal go away. It didn't change the fact that Finn had been pulled into a chaotic situation that threatened to ruin everything they had created, that Poppy had lied, or that secrets had been held. Nevertheless, she was confronted by Luna and had to make a choice she didn't want to make. Luna's posture was tentative, as though she thought Steffy would snap at any second, and her eyes were full of remorse. Luna said, "I never wanted this to happen. I never intended to obstruct your relationship with Finn." Steffy's face was unreadable as she folded her arms. "But here we are nonetheless." Luna took a deep breath. "I am aware of your anger. And you are perfectly entitled to be. I don't want to lose my family, which I was unaware I had." Steffy's jaw tightened as she struggled to balance her feelings with the situation's facts. She sensed that Finn was staring at her and urging her to act morally. Her father's advice about the value of family and avoiding letting bitterness consume her was still ringing in her head. She inhaled deeply and slowly. Steffy said in a quiet, collected voice, "I don't trust you. Your mother is not someone I trust. I also detest the fact that I was made to endure this whole circumstance. However, I will not be the antagonist in this tale." As though she hadn't anticipated Steffy saying anything somewhat forgiving, Luna's lips slightly opened. Steffy's eyes narrowed. "However, this should not be interpreted as an invitation to enter my life. This is for Finn. Since he cherishes you. For the reason that he is worthy of a relationship with his daughter. I'm not going to obstruct that. However, that does not imply that I must enjoy it." Finn let out a breath, his face flushed with relief. Luna's look was one of appreciation, and her eyes glistened with compassion. Knowing that this was not the end, Steffy turned away, her heart still sad. Forgiveness took time. It wasn't simple. But it was sufficient to maintain harmony for the time being.